It is an honor to address you as a member of the inaugural Presidential Council of the Accra Reset on the occasion of the Davos meeting, which is guided by a simple but demanding conviction. Sovereignty is not a slogan and must be proved, built, and delivered through action and results.
When a sitting African president says this at a global economic forum, it's no longer rhetoric, it's a warning and it's a challenge because sovereignty, when spoken this plainly, stops being an idea and starts becoming a demand. Welcome to World Reframed. I'm Ismail Akwe. Here we interrogate global power shifts from the perspective of the Global South. At the World Economic Forum, something unusual happened. African presidents, former heads of state, and global institutions gathered not to ask for aid, but to ask whether aid itself has become the problem. This conversation had a name, the Accra Reset.
For the Democratic Republic of Congo and for the entire Great Lakes region, this sovereignty in action begins with the truth that we must now make fully investable. Peace and harmony cannot be consolidated by declarations alone. They are consolidated through production, employment, credible regional value chains, and effectively shared prosperity. This is precisely the meaning of the sphere of sovereign prosperity, a minimally viable geo-economic platform in which neighboring states coordinate their public policies, investments, and standards in order to unlock cross-border value chains, integrate regional markets, and increase collective resilience in an increasingly complex global environment.
This is not accidental language. Congo sits on minerals that power the global economy, cobalt, copper, lithium, yet it remains aid dependent. And that contradiction matters because if you control resources but not value chains, not processing, not pricing, not market, then you are not sovereign. You are strategic for someone else.
I challenge the global 500 companies represented here to commit to sourcing 10% of their remote technical workforce from the Accra Reset nations by 2030. This is a win-win we promise for decades, but fail to deliver. You get the talent you desperately need to innovate. We get the dignified jobs we need to stabilize. Together, we turn the digital divide into a digital bridge. The bridge is built. It is secure. It is open for business. It is time to cross it.
Nigeria's vice president didn't speak like a beneficiary. He spoke like a shareholder demanding returns. That's a shift from gratitude to assertion, from appeal to leverage. But here's the catch. Assertion without coordination remains noise. One country pushing back is brave. 10 countries pushing back together is power.
Today, as I address you here in Davos, one thing is clear. Our world as we know it is at an inflection point. The global multilateral governance system universally agreed and accepted after the Second World War is breaking down. Bilateral relations among nations are increasingly becoming transactional, and many state and non-state actors are acting unilaterally in pursuing their own national and parochial interests. Africa has lagged behind in the past decades following liberation from colonial rule and has been trapped in cycles of conflict and multidimensional poverty. Africa has thrived on handouts and humanitarian assistance from the developed world. While no specific name has yet been coined for the new global system that will emerge, Africa intends to be at the table in determining what that new global order will look like. Africa must pull itself up by its own bootstraps. Global humanitarian assistance is shrinking, and many developed countries, including Europe, are compelled to cut overseas development assistance and increase defense spending by the new reality of an unpredictable ally across the Atlantic.
Mahama's intervention is important because it admits failure, not of Africa, but of the system. Aid was meant to be temporary, a bridge. Instead, it became permanent, a structure, and permanent breeds dependency, compliance, and fear of disruption. The Accra Reset asks a dangerous question. What happens when the bridge collapses?
Aid systems are under fiscal stress and are dwindling, if not disappearing. Institutions are pulled by competition and mandates. Trust is weakening. Coordination is harder. In such moments, countries that are not organized for negotiation and execution do not merely fall behind. They become bargaining chips and at best, and footsteps at the worst. That is why the Accra Reset has come to be, to inspire leaders to stop complaining about the system that has changed or is changing, and to build a way through it.
Obasanjo represents institutional memory. He has negotiated aid, signed the agreement, sat across the table. So when he says the global south cannot outsource its future, it lands differently. When leaders who once depended on aid now question it, something fundamental has shifted. This is not rebellion, it's reckoning.
The Commonwealth has survived by learning early a difficult lesson, that history cannot be undone, but it can be redesigned. Ours is one of the few global families where North and South, and in between, has nearly perfected the art of consensus building around its values. We are determined to course correct, from business as usual to a transformative plan to build democratic resilience, economic resilience, and climate resilience, with a focus on our youth and women through skills learning and entrepreneurship, as well as innovative financing. There is no doubt that the traditional development cooperation no longer responds to the need for high-impact, resilient solutions that improve lives and safeguard our planet.
Notice the tone: cautious, diplomatic, reformist. Institutions can feel the ground moving beneath them, but they move slower than politics and slower than reality. The world is reorganizing. The global south cannot afford to wait for permission.
The Global Fund is to align financing markets partners around national strategies and leverage global scale where this can help. And this has worked. As President Mahama said, there has been extraordinary progress on fighting AIDS, TB and malaria, in extending life expectancy, in reducing maternal and infant mortality. And this has been driven by local leadership, exercising real decision-making power, backed by external funding, but also backed by increasing domestic resources. We must ensure that this process isn't seen by donors as an excuse to yet further reduce their support for global health. Because while there are some countries in the continent that are well advanced on this and absolutely ready to seize sovereignty and to reduce their reliance on external funding sharply, there are other countries on the continent, particularly those racked by conflict, where saving lives and sustaining and improving the health of the people will require external support. So together we must make sure that, in a sense, this isn't misinterpreted by donors.
This is critical. When the head of a major aid institution admits aid is shrinking, the global south has two options: panic or prepare. The Accra Reset chooses preparation, mobilizing domestic capital, unlocking regional finance, and treating development as ownership, not charity. Here is the uncomfortable truth. We say the global south needs unity, yet we meet in Davos, Washington, London to discuss African futures. If this is about us, Why is it always hosted elsewhere? This isn't logistics, it's mindset. Sovereignty begins with where power conversations happen and who controls the room. As long as global south countries negotiate trade individually, they remain vulnerable. When the US breaks trade rules, who pushes back? When Europe subsidizes its industries, who retaliates? Fragmented economies are easy to discipline. United economies are hard to ignore. Trade blocs are not ideology, they are insurance.
These are not academic exercises, they are instruments of agency. In 2025, the Accra Reset was launched politically at the UN General Assembly, and at the G20 in Johannesburg, we established an interim secretariat. Today in Davos, we have unveiled a pragmatic strategy anchored firmly in execution. Our next stop will be Addis Ababa at the African Union in February this year, where the College of Advisors will seek formal political endorsement. What we've announced today, the Belvedere commitments, constitutes a central pillar in institutionalizing this movement towards the Club of Accra. Friends, colleagues, the Accra Reset is no longer an idea, it's no longer a declaration. It is now a sovereignty movement. The road ahead will not be smooth, but let there be no doubt. We're organized, we're aligned, and we're determined.
The Accra Reset is not a declaration of independence. It is a test of courage, of coordination, of whether the Global South truly believes in itself. Because aid will end, whether we are ready or not. This has been World Reframed. Follow us on all social media channels and share your thoughts with us.